Sounds of war, explosion shaking Iran and lighting up the sky as the United States and Israel only ramp up attacks on key Iranian targets. From inside the rubble, Iran's Ayatollah Ali seethes a new message to the world, and here it is. He's calling for the shedding of President Trump's blood. Meanwhile, the U.S. joining Israel with deeper bombardments shaking the Middle East at this hour. In an exclusive interview with CBS Evening News anchor Tony Dokoupil, Israel's president says his country didn't have a choice leading up to attacks on Iran. Listen.
Are you not concerned that without a clear end game, what you get could be worse than what you have?
It's always something that one needs to take into account. But there's not much of a choice when you know, okay, that they want to jump from 2,000 long-range missiles to 20,000. When you know that they have invested all their nation's resources and money in creating havoc in the Middle East as you try to make peace with Muslim countries. When you know that they have another new secret plan to rush to the bomb, you have to take action.
His words, when you know. Meanwhile, air raid sirens continue in Tel Aviv, Israel, where people move from homes to shelters many times a day. CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata is one of those hearing the sirens. Here's his report.
It's been another noisy overnight here, another noisy morning as Iran has continued to try to target Israel. Israel's defense have been able to intercept the incoming missiles. The Iranian military actually showed video, what they say were missiles that were targeting the airport here. The United States military says that missile launches from Iran are down more than 70% since the conflict began. It doesn't feel that way here, especially now that Hezbollah has joined the fight. As 5 days into this war, the U.S. military says now that its missiles and fighter jets have now started to strike targets deeper into Iran. Iranian state media has updated the death toll to more than 1,200. Meanwhile, the United States is widening the war on land and at sea. Iran's foreign minister said more than 130 sailors were aboard an Iranian frigate that was sunk by a submarine, a U.S. submarine that torpedoed it. That's the first time a U.S. sub has sunk a warship since World War II. Sri Lankan authorities said they recovered around 80 bodies. Iran called it an atrocity, and the United States will bitterly regret. So Secretary Hegseth has said that this war is not decelerating, but accelerating. But meanwhile, Iran has still proven capable of firing drones and missiles here at Israel and the Gulf states and further afield. Yesterday, NATO said that they intercepted a missile that was actually headed to what U.S. officials say was a U.S. base inside Turkey, Incirlik. It was intercepted, and there's some unverified video that it may have landed somewhere between the border of Syria and Turkey in a field there. Now, officials that we spoke to, lawmakers, say that Secretary Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff had actually briefed lawmakers at a closed-door meeting that defenses might struggle with defending against Iranians' drones. They might be a challenge, surely because the volume of what's going on there in terms of the incoming to Gulf states. Same time, the Pentagon has identified 2 remaining soldiers of the 6 that were killed on the March 1st drone strike in Kuwait. Chief Warrant Officer Robert Marzan, 54, of Sacramento. Major Jeffrey R. O'Brien, 45, of Iowa. We learned today that Noel Titchens, who is also part of that initial strike on that base or on that port inside Kuwait, he would have turned 43 today. Back to you.
Charlie D'Agata, thank you so much. Let's go live to the White House now in CBS News. Willie James Inman, good to talk to you, Willie. The question of who will lead Iran continues to really be a big topic here. After all of this, or maybe even after some of the objectives are accomplished, President Trump really has to look to the future of Iran. We're aware of that reporting by Axios that the president wants to be personally involved in who leads Iran. What are you hearing from the White House?
Hey there, Reed. We have reached out to the White House for confirmation or for additional details on this Axios report, and we haven't heard back. just yet. But I want to point out the president's comments to Axios. He says they are wasting their time. Khamenei's son is a lightweight. I have to be involved in the appointment like with Delcy Rodriguez, referring to the interim leader there in Venezuela. Of course, this situation with Iran, much different than what happened in Venezuela. In one swoop, the American military forces were able to capture Nicolas Maduro and his wife and bring them back to the United States. That operation taking place just over one night. But this operation likely lasting weeks or a month or more. Until those goals are accomplished. The administration has tried to outline those goals, destroying Iran's navy, destroying their ballistic missile program, their ability to create a nuclear weapon in the future. And the president referring to the likelihood that the late Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, his son, likely perhaps being tapped for that role, even though he has not held public office. We, of course, know the president has talked about different Iranian leaders who could perhaps fill the void that Khamenei, his death, has cast on the Iranian government. The president essentially saying that many of those potential leaders were killed in a strike. Dozens of leaders, top leadership in Iran, killed in that strike over the weekend. So the president seemingly talking about being personally involved in terms of selecting Iran's next leader, likely because telegraphing this in that interview, if you have someone who is just as bad as Khamenei, you're going to have the same situation in the near future. So we perhaps wait and see in terms of who that political leader will be. But the president saying that he wants to be involved in calling Khamenei's son unacceptable to him in terms of being the next leader, the next supreme leader of Iran.
While all of these conversations happen and these reports swirl, of course, we're mindful of the fact that there are thousands of American citizens who are in that region. Some of them have talked to our reporter Chanel Call in just the last hour here on CBS News 24/7, saying they're trapped, they're not able to evacuate. And now today, the administration there at the White House is facing some criticism over that, about not being ready. What are you hearing on that issue? How is the White House countering that narrative?
Yeah, there certainly is an open question, and one that critics have really pounced on for the administration, seemingly not having a plan in place to evacuate American citizens who wanted to evacuate ahead of this conflict taking place. Now, we know the White House has been pushing back against that narrative, against that criticism. I should note our chief White House correspondent, Nancy Cordes, asked the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, about this whole situation, about Americans evacuating and how Americans are able to reach the State Department and get in contact with them if they want to be able to leave some of these countries that you see there on your screen, where the flights are either restricted or the airspace is restricted. Take a listen to what Caroline said.
Who called the State Department hotline as recently as last night were being told, we can't help you, you have to make your own plans.
Well, the line was updated, and I expect every single person in this room to report on that accurately, so that information can be relayed appropriately to your audiences and to the American people.
Details on how many charter flights have been able to get out of the region so far with Americans on board?
I don't have an exact count for you, but I know that we're working on chartering many flights. As soon as we were doing it yesterday, we're doing it again today, and you should not expect us to detail exactly when these flights are taking off for obvious reasons. The Iranians have shown that they are not going to hesitate to target civilians in the region, which is completely intolerable.
And Reed, just a quick update, a White House official confirming the president's comments to Axios, where the president said that he wants to be involved in the appointment of Iran's next supreme leader. So that news and that confirmation coming from a White House official. On top of that, with the evacuation situation there in the region, the State Department is urging those Americans who want to evacuate to reach out to them directly as they coordinate potential charter flights. We do know that the State Department, according to a statement that they released earlier today, that some 10,000 Americans have been helped either with connecting them to some type of transportation or assistance. They have been helped by the State Department. And in that same statement, some 20,000 Americans have returned home since February 28th. Now, those Americans returning home on their own, I'll point that out. But those charter flights, one at least taking off from the Middle East yesterday, more flights to come. Those flights organized by the State Department to get Americans home if they choose to leave the Middle East.
All right, Willie, James, Inman on so many points as this war escalates in Iran. Thank you so much for that report. Let's go from the White House over to Capitol Hill, where lawmakers in the House will vote on a war powers resolution. Went down in flames in the Senate yesterday. It's designed to limit President Trump's ability to take further military action in Iran without first involving Congress. Let's go live now to CBS News Congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Okay, so friend, we discussed this yesterday. The resolution failed. You called it. Today, it's also expected to fail. So what are lawmakers who voted to go against this war powers resolution saying about their decision?
Hey, Reed. Well, essentially the rationale for the opposition to this is that we're already in the middle of this operation, and to limit the president's ability would limit the troops and therefore put this operation and mission in jeopardy. That's kind of the line that we've been hearing from Republican leadership and concerns among the Republican rank and file opposed to this measure. I should also note that we saw some crossover last night. Republican Senator Rand Paul was the co-sponsor of that resolution. Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania opposed it, the only Democrat to do so. So we're going to see a similar event play out on the House floor later today. They are debating this war powers resolution, but we're likely going to get to the same result. You do have at least 2 Republicans on the House side who have expressed support for this. One of them is Thomas Massie, who we talk about a lot. He is a co-sponsor of this resolution. Another Republican, Warren Davidson, has from the get-go been expressing a lot of concern about the rationale for this operation and what the scope of it is. So look at him to potentially oppose this resolution as well. But by and large, there is a big push among Republican leadership not to support this, and it is likely to fail on the House floor later today. Now, what we are watching for is whether the White House, the administration, the Pentagon requests additional money from Congress to pay for this operation. And that could give Congress another chance to weigh in on this, and we'll see a bigger debate potentially on funding.